Hello my lovely Flosstube friends, and welcome to the first video of 2020. What better way to start the year than with a new year, new products video. You know the old saying, never say never. I think I need to eat my own words. For those of you that have been with me for this stitching journey for the last 5 years, you'll know that I was very set in my ways regarding the tools and the products that I used, the projects that I was drawn to. And I've got to be honest, I think it was because I had a lot more time. You know, I wasn't necessarily working full time. I spent a lot of my time stitching, and there was a certain way that I did everything. Well, I have to admit that after doing my 2019 year-end review, whilst putting those slides together, I did reflect quite heavily on the year, because when I was putting things side by side, I was like, I don't think I actually got as much done as I would have liked. And then I think the penny dropped. So the penny dropped that 2019 was the first year really that I probably stitched less last year than I've ever stitched. And that's purely down to time. I just don't have the time that I used to have. And there are other things that I think when I actually sat and thought about it, I could understand why. So as you know, because I was always drawn to bigger projects, I can only really stitch two-handed. When the summer months come and it's far too hot to be indoors, I can't drag my big stand outside. And because I've never been a Q-snap person, and obviously can't really stitch single-handed, well I can, but it is the slowest experience of your life. It's just something that I've never been able to adapt to. So because obviously everything's always required big frames, big stand, if I'm unable to actually be in front of it for very long, or to have all my kit out and have it all around me, which tends to happen, take Christmas for instance. You know, this Christmas, the fact that I had quite a bit of time off over Christmas, and although we was having people round and we had, you know, visitors and guests, you would still think that I would manage to get a fair amount of stitching in. Well, I didn't. And the reason for that is because I work with a big frame and big stand and full coverage, so there's all the floss everywhere and the charts everywhere. I stitch in my living room. I don't have a stitchy space that I go off to out the way, that's hidden away, that you can have it all set up, stitch to your heart's content and then walk away and then come back to it and it's all just left out. I can't do that. I like to stitch in my family room. I like to stitch so that I actually get some time with my family, because otherwise I wouldn't. So everything is in my main living area, which is fine apart from the fact that when you've got visitors and you've got guests coming, all of that kit needs to be packed up and moved out the way. You know, either put into a corner somewhere if it's the outlaws coming, or into my study out the way if it's more generalised guests coming. And the other thing I've noticed is, because obviously I've worked much more in 2019, now that I'm sort of back to some sort of normality, I only really get the weekends or the evenings. And when I come in from work in the evenings, I'm tired and I don't have very long. I'm maximum an hour's worth of stitching is time-wise is what I get in an evening. And realistically, when you've got big frames, big scroll bars and big projects that you need to drag out, to set up, to sit down and stitch, it just, by the time I've got it all out, it will be time to put it all back. So I think that's the reason that my stitching sort of time took a bit of a plummet last year. As well as obviously I can't drag my stitching, you know, when you've got big frames and big stands, you can't just drag them here, there and everywhere. You know, they have to be sort of quite centralised. But things changed last year. So you'll all know that, you know, there was a few videos last year where I actually said I bought Q-snaps. Admittedly, I was balancing them on things to be able to stitch, but things change. And because I'm limited on my time, I needed to be more adaptive and more adaptable to be able to get any stitching done. So this year I'm going to need to change things up. Things need to be changed for me to actually get productive stitching. So because 2019, in my opinion, was not as productive as I would have liked, and I knew that I needed to do some changing up, 2020 I think is going to be the year where I'm gonna need to adapt. And I've already started to adapt. So let me introduce you to my new best friend that I received for Christmas. So say hello to Minnie. So I received Minnie for Christmas. This is a desktop mini holder by a company called Velke Potoky. It's a Czech company, and they make these, well, I think there's a range, there's like different ranges of these little stands. Now, like I said, you know when I was saying about eating my words? I'm so eating my words. It is too good, just too good. So let me show you what it is. So, because it's a mini stand, it's designed for hoops and Q-snaps. This is where it all sort of comes into the whole eat my words. So it comes so compact, super easy to travel, and really, really versatile for whatever situation I might need to use it for. So how this works, you've got an upright section that you lift up with a knob to decide whereabouts you want your angling at. So you tighten that up. This is the section where your stitching or your Q-snap or your hoop goes in. So if I get my stitching, see, Q-snap people, eating of words, place that in there, tighten this little screw up, or this new knob. Oh, really, Fudge? Voila. Look at that. I absolutely love it. Not only is it practical and super useful, but it's also beautiful. So you know when you've got some of these, I mean, there's no judging, but I have to say that there are quite a few frames, stands out there on the market that we use that are actually rather an eyesore. You know, they're not the sort of thing that you could leave set up in your living room, or in a family room, where you're going to have people and guests come in that you wouldn't mind having out on the side. This little beauty, I would have no objections to this being out on the side. Admittedly, it's not going to be very helpful for them bigger projects. No, it's not, because this is actually designed for the smaller hoops and the smaller Q-snaps. But look at that. How cool is that? It is like, when it's just sort of like, a lot of the time I'm very, it's going to sound awful, but I can be quite dismissive about things that I really don't think that are going to be my cup of tea. This would probably, back a year or so ago, would have been one of those things that I'd look at and think, well, I don't think that would be very useful for me. Now, I think this is going to be a total game changer for me. Utter game changer. So, part of my review of 2019 was that, I didn't get as much stitching done as I would have liked. The way that I've actually sort of approached it and sort of, thought it through is my verdict of why I wasn't very productive this year is 1, time, and 2, flexibility. So because I'm very much stuck in my main room with my big frame, with my big projects, and I have to get it all out and then put it all away, with limited time, you tend to easily get put off by it. It's like, oh, I can't really be bothered to pull it all out. By the time I get it all pulled out, it'll be time to put it back, and then I'm going to bed. This, totally different, because this, I can sit up at the dining room table. Because it's so easily adjustable, I can lift it up. It's a lap stand. I've actually been taking this to bed. Because obviously you know that I can only stitch two-handed, because that's how I taught myself. There's a downside to that I can't just hold a Q-snap. Or I wouldn't want to just hold a Q-snap. I couldn't hold one Q-snap and keep doing one-handed stitching. For me, I'd be like, that's going too slow, far too slow, especially when you're actually a two-handed stitcher, because it's so much faster, I find it so much faster. This makes it so that it doesn't matter. If it's the middle of the summer and it's boiling hot here, which, as you know, there's a lot of glass in this room, it turns into a bit of a greenhouse. You cannot stay indoors. You cannot sit indoors in the evening. It is far too hot. There are many a times that I wanted to be out in the garden, sitting out on the deck under the brolly, but I can't take my stitching out there because I couldn't take my big frame. Now I can. And the fact that I've actually already sort of switched over, or started to switch over to using Q-snaps, is perfect. I mean, I'm not going to say never when it comes to hoops, because I've always said hoops are not my thing. I'll never use hoops. Do you know what? I'm not going to ever say that again, because there's a very high likely possibility that you will see me in the future working with some sort of hoop as well as Q-snaps. I've sort of changed over to the Q-snaps, not away from my big frame. So obviously my full coverage, my big heaven and earth, my chatelaines that have got beads and my mirabilias when I'm beading those, obviously that will all still be done on my big frame, on my big stand, and when I've got plenty of time. However, there are a lot of projects that I've adapted to. I don't know whether this is the reason that some of my projects that I've done in 2019 have changed. You know, has my taste changed just because my taste has changed? I've asked myself. Or has my taste changed because I know I'm on limited time, so now I need to start thinking about stitching things that, you know, I'm likely to get done, things that I can put on a Q-snap, things that I can stitch whilst commuting. The dog's deciding to go back to his bed. Things that I would, you know, things that I can take on the train with me, commute stitch, some of the smaller pieces that have got a bit of hard hanger, you know, all of those things are different as of 2019. As of 2019, it's almost as if everything changed. So because of that, my tools that I need to use to make the process easier also need to change. And hence, this lovely little mini. I mean, the bit I like about this is it's so versatile. I can take this to bed with me and I can stitch in bed. I can sit on the sofa with it. I can sit up at my dining room table with it. Retreats. Now, you all know how much I love a retreat. The retreats. This is a deal breaker. You know, yes, when I go to my crew retreats, because I'm in the car, and if I'm going to be there for 4 days, then I will 9 times out of 10 pack up my big kit and take it with me. But now I've got an option that I don't have to. So if I'm happy not to stitch on chatelaines that have got beads on and mirabilias that have got beads on and my full coverage pieces, I can take this. I can take this, take my other projects, take Q-snaps. It's so small that I can fit it in a suitcase. In fact, it's so small, you could probably fit it in a handbag. So should we see? Let's see if I can get this in a handbag. Because obviously I stitch on the train. Where's my handbag? Handbag? Okay, let's do a demonstration on the handbag, shall we? Now, I don't know how big your handbags are, but my handbag needs to be a substantial size because obviously I commute into the city. So let's see if this fits in my handbag. It so fits in the handbag. Look at that. And there's room to do it up. What's not to like about that? See, now this, I like it. I love it when things like this happen because you haven't even, that's the first time I've actually put it in the handbag. So I'm gonna love this. I already love it. What am I saying? Not I'm gonna love it. I already love it. You know, obviously, being that I love retreats, if I was to decide that I want to go on a retreat abroad, or I want to get on a plane, or I just don't want to carry all the stuff, I can just take this. Take this, take a few Q-snaps with some other projects, and literally the setup is just too quick. I mean, look, whilst I'm talking to you, I'm actually doing it. And you can set this upright. So this upright basically dictates, you know, at what level your stitching is at. So you can lift this up and down. If you want it fully up, you could have it fully up if you want to. The best thing I think about the Q-snaps is obviously you can bend them down and up. I don't know whether you can do that with a hoop because obviously I've never used hoops, so I don't know. But I'm imagining that the principle is the same. But the fact that it has the flexibility of this knob at the bottom, which basically tilts it up and down as well, I love it. I love it. And it's just a pretty little stand. I will have no objections to having this sat out on the side, in view, without sort of thinking, you know, I've got people coming, I need to put all that away. Because it's pretty. It's in keeping with the house. I know that they do different colours, but obviously it would make sense that I would get a grey one because my house is grey and white. So I cannot fault it. And the beauty of it is, I mean, you know, so when you want to get to the back of your work, once it's all clamped in, you literally just turn it. You turn the work to get to the other side. And then you turn it back. I mean, and it goes that way. So, you know, if you're sort of on an angle, you could do it on an angle. It is an absolute game changer. When you know, in the summer, when it's too hot to be indoors, I now can take my stitching outside. I don't need to worry. I can still stitch two-handed because I have something that's going to hold it. If I'm on the train we have like little tables in front of you where you sit. The fact that this fits in my handbag, I could quite easily take this in with me, and when I'm commuting, put it on the table and stitch to my heart's content. Two-handed, don't have to hold anything. So for those of you that love smalls, love working on the Q-snaps and the little hoops, but also like to stitch two-handed or have sort of arthritis or rheumatism problems with your hands, this is a perfect little stand. Now you understand why I was saying about never say never, and I'm eating my words. But we have to adapt. So when our stitching style changes and things change, when you don't even realise they're changing. I mean, it was only the fact that I was doing my 2019 slides and I was thinking, well, I didn't actually achieve as much as I wanted to. Why didn't I? It's only when I sat there and sort of reflected back to the year of the reasons why I didn't pick up my stitching like I normally would have. Obviously, time is always a problem. And like I say, last year, I was on very limited time for my stitching. You know, I do my dancing, I'm working full time, I do my gardening, obviously I look after my mum. There are a number of different things that when you bolt them all together, there are sometimes either periods through the year or a year or so where, you know, you're up against the clock all the time. You don't have the time that you used to. But when I do have the time, and I think that was the key, when I then did have the time to do some stitching, because I only had an hour, because I was capturing an hour here and there, I didn't want to drag all my big stuff out. And by the time I'd set it all up, it was time to put it away and go to bed. So I have a very sneaky suspicion that this year will be much more productive. I mean, I'm not going to say it definitely is because I don't know. I don't know what the year will bring me. Who knows? Nobody knows that. But the one thing that I do know is now that I have this little beauty, this makes my stitching much more flexible. You know, I don't just have to stitch indoors or try and balance a Q-snap on the train because I can only stitch two-handed. I have so many more options now. I mean, I'm going to throw a little spoiler out there. I was going to wait until the next monthly update, but I'll put a spoiler out there. I'm actually flying out to Arizona in February to go and see the lovely Deborah with Mary Perkins. And obviously, when it was decided that we was going to go, I mean, it's been on the cards for quite some time, so we've known it's coming, and I was sitting there thinking, yeah, it's going to be great, we're going to go to some L&S's, which I haven't been to before, so I'm really excited for that, going to go do some shopping in the States, and and we're going to sit and stitch, and it's going to be like proper little stitchy gang. And then I was thinking, hold on a minute, how am I going to stitch? How am I going to stitch any projects? Because I can only stitch two-handed. Now, obviously, I can't take my scroll bars, I can't take my big frames, and I certainly can't dismantle my stand and put it in a suitcase and take it out there with me. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'll have to balance my frames on like a sofa arm or something to try and stitch. Now, it's not a problem. I don't need to worry. I can just take this. And because it fits in my handbag, it can go on the plane with me, so I can stitch. I mean, because it's going to be a long flight. I think the flight's like, I don't know, 10 plus hours to Arizona from here, from Heathrow. Yeah, it is over 10 hours. So, you know, 10 hours is a long flight when you're just sitting there doing nothing. Now I can stitch on the plane for a whole 10 hours. 10 hours there, 10 hours back. God, I should manage to get loads of stitching done. But when I'm out there, I can now stitch using this. You know, I don't need, because I mean, I was sitting there thinking, well, you know, Deborah will probably have an extra stand, but I can't imagine that she's going to have 2 extra stands. And because there's 2 of us, I was like, well, that's not going to work. So yeah, it's just too good. It's so well made. I mean, that's the other thing. It's sort of, you know, like some things that you get, it's like, oh, it's a bit rough on the edges. This isn't. This is like super well made. It's all handmade. I love it. Absolutely love it. Look at that. And to top it off, let me just set it back up so you can see a demo one more time of how quick it all is. There we go. Let's put him over here, out of the way. As well as that, I also got this little needlework box, but it's like box in a box. So that's the top of the box. And as you can see, it's finished very similarly to the other one. And again, it's in a grey colour, but they do other colours. And when I take the top off, obviously it's in use. So it's got like a little corked inner tray so that you can put stuff in, and obviously that's like a tray that you could have on the side if you wanted to. But inside there's like boxes, but it's good because they've left you a gap to get your finger in. How many times have you got boxes where you've got like all those boxes that fit into another box, and then when you try and stick your finger in, you can't actually get anything out? So it comes up with all these different little compartments and different boxes. And then underneath, at the very bottom, it's got these, which I think is great. Look. So, you know, if you want some boxes out on the side, you could put boxes out on the side. But if you don't want to, then they all just sort of stack back in. But again, this is one of those things that, because it's sort of so pretty and sort of matching the stand, I don't have a problem with that being left out on the side. So all those bits and pieces where I've got like little bags, I had like they're like little makeup bags. I used to have like little makeup bag type things. That I used to put my scissors and my, you know, my thread heaven in and all those little bits and pieces. But then it would always get left on the side, along with all the bits and pieces that are just sort of, now I don't need to do that. It can all go in the little box with the stand. Doesn't look like an eyesore. It's not like I'm going to be sitting there going, oh, look at the state of the house. Look, there's all these bits and pieces everywhere. I love it. Absolutely love it, I've got to be honest. And as for the way that it turned up, I mean, this was this is the shipping box. I've never seen anything like it. I was a bit blown away. It's got like a little holder for the Allen key. So you pull the Allen key out and then you have to Allen key open all of the screws on the top. Do you know what? Even my Manelium frame and stand didn't come packaged as well as these did. And when you take the top off, it all came, obviously it's not in it now. Here's the box. And it all came so well packaged with these like little, I don't know, it's a cross between like it's like monster felt is the only way to describe it. So it all came in these lovely felt bags. These little things went over both of the knobs. You know, like the knobs that it's got on it. I mean, it was so well packaged. Little Hessian. And it all just was in the box. Really lovely, like, very cutely packed. Which, yes, okay, it's packaging. It shouldn't matter. The fact that so much attention to detail went into the package sort of blew my mind anyway. Because I was like, wow. So the problem is now is because these boxes are so good and so cute, even for these sort of boxes, I don't want to give them up. Hence the reason that I've still got them. Plus, obviously, to show you, because obviously I wanted to make sure that you saw these boxes, because look at them. So, you know, the packaging has been done in such a way that I was blown away by packaging alone, let alone anything else. I think I will have to get rid of the packaging though. I can't keep the packaging. But, like I say, this little beauty from this company, Velke Potoky, that's it, Velke Potoky. Or at least that's how I pronounce it. I wasn't 100% sure how you pronounce it. I'll put the link to the company under here, like with the website, so that if you was interested, you could go and have a look. They've got more than just this series. They've got like a number of different series of stands. Obviously, this is more designed for, or this is the version that is designed for the smaller hoops and the smaller Q-snaps, which, to be honest, is sort of more my cup of tea. I don't think I'll ever have like the huge big Q-snaps anyway. Not to say that you couldn't get a bigger Q-snap in this. But they do stands that are a little bit more beefy, if you like, for maybe the bigger Q-snaps and the bigger hoops. But this works perfectly for me. And I honestly would say that whereas before I would be like, there is no way that I would put certain projects onto Q-snaps. I'm still very much there when it comes to beads, and I'm still very much there when it comes to full coverage pieces, but things like when I'm just stitching Mirabilias and Celtic Ladies and the Long Dog sampler, I've got no problems now with putting the stitching underneath the Q-snap, like in the Q-snap with the little plastic bits over the top. As long as I'm protecting my stitches, I think it'll be fine. But there you go. What can I say, people? New best friend, new best tool of 2020, but then we are only in January. Who knows what comes in the future? But what can I say other than never say never? And until next time, people, bye-bye for now.